All right, welcome back to Conscious Construction, the Conscious Enneagram podcast. I'm Abby Robbins.
And I'm Kimberly Culbertson.
And today we are talking about type 7 in relationship. So, Kim, are you ready to roast yourself?
I made me feel so happy and then so sad.
All at the same time. It can
But
be,
yes.
Yeah.
Even sevens can be roasted.
Yeah, 7s can definitely be roasted. We can all be roasted. Make no mistake.
We just don't spend a lot of time roasting ourselves.
Yeah, it's different. It's painful, but it's good.
It turns out we also suck
Yeah.
in relationships, but also are wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Yes.
both.
Yeah,
There's
both.
both.
Both. So we talk about the types in relationships through what they do really well in relationship, what they struggle with in relationship, what their work is in relationship, and how we can support them.
Yeah.
So do you want to start off with what you do well?
No, I want you to start off with what I do well.
I didn't know if you wanted to like set the tone and then we go from there, or if you wanted me to be like, you're great, or whatever.
I do think sevens get a bad rap in terms of being good or bad at relationship specifically. Yeah. Like the stereotype for a 7 is they're very selfish. They don't really care about you. They just want you if it's fun for them. And I feel like as a 7, I think of myself as like good at relationship.
Yeah.
And part of that is that I see myself as the counter type, the social 7, which can look a lot more like a 2. But there is a lot in terms of, 7s just being very selfish in relationships out there in the world.
Yeah, and I think that definitely happens, but I look at the 7s that I am close to, like I look at my clients, you and like both of my best friends, you and Matthias are both 7s.
Yeah.
Like,
hi, Matthias.
hi. They're like the 7s that I know and interact with are actually are all very good in relationship with me. And I think what is really maybe we're getting to the heart of through this whole season is that like everybody is good and everybody is bad in relationship in different ways.
Absolutely.
But there may be different types that you are better in relationship with just kind of off the bat. Like,
yeah, where it's like it's simpler. There's more easy places of.
Yeah, and I would say that like I don't believe that there is like a compatibility piece of the Enneagram, like you're more or less compatible. Right. But I think there are some spaces that just generally like we really get along. We see the world in a lot of the same ways.
Sure.
And I think some things that 7s do really well in relationship, kind of regardless of who they're in relationship with, you bring so much space for joy and celebration. And I think that is, and that's part of the like 7 caricature, but I think that we really undervalue that in our society. Like we've talked about a lot, like you and I, there's a lot of intensity in my household. Like last week we talked about 4s and I'm an 8 and my wife's a 4. There's a lot of intensity in our household. And one of the things that I remember you said to me many years ago was that like there's a lot of intensity here, but not a lot of room for joy. And that has really just stuck with me. And I don't think that anybody else could have brought that to my attention, right? That like, and I like being intense, and I like that my wife is intense, and I like that we have an intense household, and like there are a lot of things that I'm just like, yeah, this is great, but we miss that joy piece.
You're not trying to put a silver lining on anything with the 8 or the 4.
No.
So the 7 definitely does that.
Yeah.
But it's almost like because you're resistant to that silver lining, there's less space for true joy.
Well, and I think let's talk about this in relationship too with 7s that I think is really important is like there's not actually anything wrong with the silver lining, right? You're like, ooh, I like this. And what I mean by that is the silver lining is a very real and true part of the experience. And 7s can tend to only focus on the silver lining, and that can be a problem. But if you're not able to see that at all, then that is also a problem.
Right.
Right? Like, it is good and actually something that is really challenging and important to learn how to do is to see what's good in a challenging situation. Like that is important. And nobody does that better than a 7.
That's true.
Right? And
just sometimes we do it too fast or we do
too much, right? And that's every single type around the circle, right, does their stuff too fast, too much, too often, and then it becomes a problem. But that doesn't mean that the thing itself is a problem.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I think that the way 7s bring joy and like a true joy into relationships is really, really important. I think that 7s do create a lot of space for different ways of thinking and different ways of being. Like 7s are friends with everyone. Right? Like 7s have kind of this eclectic nature in how they cultivate relationships that like they want to have a little bit of everything, right? And I think that there's a real uniting spirit in that. And 7s, we talk about the silver linings in situations, and I do think 7s can really see the best in people.
Yeah,
right?
Sometimes to our detriment.
Yeah, again, like I like how you're being the downer for yourself. We just talked about this, Kim.
I've done so much work to get around these things that I definitely, I can silver lining any person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like they're being a radical asshole, and I'm like, but like maybe they're just hurt, and like sometimes that means I'm not addressing things.
The real issues. And we've had conversations around that, right? Like I am not going to silver linings anything, and so we make a good pair in that sometimes. That like be like, hey, actually no, I think you've missed the mark on this one. But being able to see what is good and valuable about a person, what is interesting about a person is a real gift. And I think that that's something that we don't often appreciate about 7s. Yeah.
I also think 7s bring a lot of energy. Like the benefit in being in a relationship with a 7 is that they can, if they choose to, bring a better energy to just about anything.
Well, and it's like, and they're not possessive of that energy. Like they want to give it to other people. They want to share it. Where an 8 or maybe even a 3, the energy is theirs, right? Like I'm bringing a lot of energy and it's mine, and you're gonna know that it's mine for whatever reason. Where 7s are very, very generous with their energy, and they like want to pour into things and bring a better and more energy to whatever it is they're doing.
Right. So one of the caricatures of the 7 is if they're in a party and it's not good, they already have another party they can go to.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
So like 7s always have a lot of options, which if you're partnered with a 7 or if you're doing collaborative work with a 7, having all those options is actually pretty great. Yeah. You have like kind of built-in strategies for, is there something better we could be doing here? But when the 7 is in the thing, they also can affect it. So if the party's not good, they can make it good.
Yeah.
If the conversation is boring, they can make it less boring. And so there is a way that, as I have done a lot of self-observation, I'm very aware of the way that I can, if I choose to, throw my energy into a room. Sometimes literally physically.
Yeah.
But even just in tone of voice, in the way I respond to things, I'm like kind of known as being someone who's very smiley, even in hard situations.
Yeah.
So like I can talk about really hard things, but create moments for levity.
Yeah.
That let people have kind of like a little bit of like a release in the middle of the hard thing. And so some of that energetic work that 7s do, especially when they're motivated to do that, is a real gift, I think, in relationship.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. And, I think another thing, and just to, give one more thing about 7s that I really appreciate is that like 7s, the 7s that I have built really, meaningful relationships with, they're just sort of down for whatever.
That's true.
Which I like deeply appreciate. Like I can't even like keep track of all the things that like you have just like very willingly followed me into.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Yeah. You're like, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's go.
To the point where my husband is like, oh, great, Abby has a new hobby. How much will that cost me? Because I met you in a coffee shop, and you were also a yoga teacher, so I started doing yoga. That was great. I was very scared to do yoga, but I was like, okay, if I have a buddy, I'll go. That is the thing about sevens.
Yeah,
Like,
they have a buddy, they'll go.
so like, okay. And then we kind of came into climbing. I brought you climbing, but then you became an expert overnight and then like led me in the climbing obsession for a while. And then we've been biking.
Yeah, I found bikes and I was like, look at this, everybody get a bike.
Our whole family got new bikes from the shop that Abby was working at for a little bit. Yeah, we definitely we'll go along for the fun.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that like for as much as sevens can create fun, they are not they're not like territorial about it, right? Like they're really willing to go along with fun too, right? Like, and I think that that's something that we miss out on sevens. You know, they often get labeled as like selfish or vapid or shallow or whatever, and it's like actually like they're not selfish. They're really open and generous in their energy and all these things, and like they're not self-centered in the fact that they have to have the attention around things, but they often find themselves in those like attention to places because they bring so much energy, but like they're also just as happy if someone else is bringing the energy. And I think that there's a real there's kind of like a built-in humility with sevens that is it gets overlooked in the caricature often. Yeah.
I actually probably prefer it if someone else is bringing the fun.
Yeah.
Like, because then I don't have to do as much labor.
Right, it's like it's less pressure.
So unlike where like a 3 or an 8 might have some of that territorial piece, like if you're trying to do a fun thing, I'll throw all my weight behind that and help it be fun.
Yeah.
And I don't need the credit for that. I'm not there for credit.
You're there for fun.
So.
I'm not there for credit. I'm there for fun. Yeah, and I think that's often missed, and I think it's important in relationships with sevens to highlight these things and really appreciate these things. Like we rely so heavily on sevens for their energy, for their fun, for the entertainment that they bring, and we we label them as whatever, right? And we've talked about that, but like in doing that, we've really dehumanized them, and I think that sevens would not like to think of them themselves this way, but I think that often sevens are the victims in their relationships because they get. I know you don't like it, do you? But I think we take advantage of sevens because they're so willing to bring this energy. They're so generous with it. They provide so much, and then we think because they're so happy and so bright and sunshiny that then we just assume that they don't have any depth, and we leave it at that. And that's where we get this like, the trope of like the tortured clown or right, the sad clown, right? Where it's like, they're so busy making other people happy, nobody stopped to see if they're actually happy. And I think that that's a real missed opportunity.
And I think because people have gotten used to them being happy and them giving their energy, they don't have space for them to be unhappy. Yeah. Or at least, and this goes into seven typology, but I don't expect there to be space for my unhappiness. So part of it is they don't have it, and part of it is that I am assuming they don't have it. Yeah. But I've definitely been in situations where it's clear, like, this is not what you're here for. Yeah. Like, this is not what we get from you. Either, like, literally someone is saying that in one way or another, or their response just makes it very clear. And I think that if we kind of turn the corner into where sevens struggle in relationship, showing up as a whole person is a struggle. Yeah. Until you have a lot of trust. Yeah. And so I immediately go to this season. Some things came out in terms of my like family of origin, my family life, and I was struggling so deeply. But I did not feel a lot of permission to be struggling in the environments that people depended on me to create energy. And also because sevens don't necessarily know their emotional realities. Yeah. Where they're avoiding them into activity.
Oh my God, yeah.
I went through this season probably 5 years ago where I would go to a meeting and I would be the clown. Like literally I would just be like...
Yeah, bouncing off the walls, doing whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I would go, I would like make the meeting work and I would throw my energy into it and I would walk like from that meeting, often in a coffee shop. My favorite coffee shop is Stout House, so I'd leave Stout House and I just remember walking out of meetings at Stout House And before I could even get to my car, I was sobbing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I would have to like, my desire, like my bodily impulse to lay down in the parking lot and sob was like high.
Yeah.
And so I'd go into my car and I would cry, and then I would wash my face and put new makeup on and go to another meeting.
Yeah.
And just push, because I didn't feel like I had space. So then I went to Al-Anon and therapy, and so don't worry about me. Done some work.
Gotta put
then.
the silver lining on it. Don't want to leave this.
I don't want people to be in the comments like, "Shit, are you okay?"
I mean, you did preface that it was 5 years ago. Like, it's okay.
Sevens really like to talk about their hard things that happened before that they're fine now.
Yeah,
that is the thing. So I do think being present about the hard things
is a real challenge.
Is a real challenge. And when you're in a relationship with a 7, that can suck for you because not everything is fun.
Yeah, and and 7s don't have a lot of space for what's not fun. Right. So if you have to talk about the family budget, or if you have to talk about if you have to talk about,
we're not calling it a budget anymore though. We're calling it a spending plan.
That's what I've learned. 7s like that so much better. But not having that space is one of the kind of key challenges for 7s in relationship. But there is also something about this training that 7s do to those around them. You kind of spoke to it, that other people don't have space for 7s to go into this deeper space, but then 7s also don't expect people to have the capacity to go into this darker space. And so I think that that's one of those things that's we do this in 9 different ways. We train people in how to see us. And 7s do train people to see them as the clown. And then they can get frustrated, right, when they've done enough work to shift out of that. Mm-hmm. And other people are slow to catch on. It can be a real pain point for 7s.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think just generally the lack of access that 7s have to the heart center also makes it challenging to be in relationship. You and I are fine because we both have the same problem. We're relating about what we're doing together and whatever. We don't have the emotionality piece, but that's not true for a majority of the folks around the Enneagram. And so missing out on that heart-centered space can make it, or not having access to it in the same way can make it difficult to even know what's going on relationally, because you're not used to that space. And so the head center jumps in and makes stories about it, and that can be a real challenge. Sorry, I'm just reading you right now. And
no, it's so true. I'm thinking about how many times I have really upset a friend by making a joke when they're trying to tell me something hard. So the 7 coping mechanism is let's bounce out of what's hard. Yeah. And that makes it very, I now have so much muscle because I've built it to stay. I just think jokes that I don't say when people are telling me hard things. Yeah. Because my instinct is to pop out, to come up like a balloon underwater. You're telling me your sad story and it is pushing my balloon up. And eventually I'm going to go, woo-hoo-hoo! And people are like, fuck you. And so I've had conversations like a year later, someone is saying, you made this joke and it really hurt my feelings. And I don't even remember that joke. And this was once I got into Enneagram work and started to understand the 7's desire to be the clown and the performer. One of the banes of my existence is that I love a good joke, and jokes depend on timing. But if you don't want to hurt your people, you have to pause, and then sometimes you mess up the timing of your joke that was fine. Oh my God. The work is good. Being a worse comedian so you could be a better person. Ugh, gross.
Ooh, what a good line for the 7s. Be a worse comedian so you can be a better person and friend.
So that's the kind of work I do now. But if you're with a 7 that's not done that work,
it's challenging.
It's very hard to get them to be serious. It's very hard to get them to stay in the pain and to take your pain as seriously. And it's not because they don't care. It's because their coping mechanism is to get out of it.
Yeah.
So they're trying to help you get out of it.
Yeah.
But it feels really dismissive and not caring and unhelpful.
Yeah, I think it's helpful. I mean, jumping forward to like how we support sevens, I think it's really helpful to know that sevens, I mean, the entire head center, right? The head center folks are the most sensitive, right? So whatever you're feeling or experiencing, head center folks are going to experience that amplified, right? Like they are like the raw nerves of the Enneagram.
That feels true.
Yeah, right? And so your reaction and your coping mechanism comes in so much stronger and so much faster because you just have this heightened sensitivity about this. So when I'm sharing something that's difficult or painful or hard, you're hearing that and you actually do have empathy because it's something we all have. Yeah. You just don't like it. And you're feeling it almost amplified, and then you want to pop out and displace all the energy upward.
Yeah. And I think in the head center, we are always in a problem-solving space.
Yeah.
So whereas the heart center can sit in emotions and the body center can sit in like the way they're experiencing something, the seven, like the head center, all the head types are trying to solve. So we go faster to solution, which as we all know, if you've done any personal development work, people don't want you to solve. They want you to empathize and listen.
Yeah.
But we don't want to. We want to solve. We want to fix. I have the solution for this. This is an equation. If this, then this, plus this.
Yeah, exactly. You got the math down, ready to go. Well, let's talk about, this is interesting because this is the first time this season that we've had someone of the type that we're talking about in the room. Yeah. So let's talk about like what your work has looked like.
Yeah.
So like we can talk generally about what the work is for sevens, but I think it's helpful if you're willing to share more about what your work has looked like, because it comes from like a real experience.
Sure. I mean, obviously I've worked on my jokes.
So
in
good.
Both ways, actually. But I think a lot of my work, so I have a son, and I knew, my husband's also a 7, so I know that intrinsically we have very little space for negative emotions. And so going into parenthood, especially the more I got into the Enneagram, the more that I knew I need to make space for his emotions especially. And then the like kind of shitty part of that is that it actually doesn't work unless I also make space for mine.
Yeah, it's the only way that works. And see, a 7 would be so interested in creating space for someone else's hard feelings if it didn't mean that it immediately brought up their own hard feelings. Right? And again, there's that like empathy that is actually intrinsic to all of us playing out for the 7.
Yeah, and I think, I'm a social 7, so it does look a little different than the caricature, but I don't think I know anyone who would say I don't have empathy. Yeah. I have it in spades, which is why I want to like move away.
Which is why I want to get out of it.
And I actually, in the first 5 years I knew the Enneagram, I typed as a 2, and a lot of people thought I was a 2. And it's because when something was going wrong, I would hop in and fix it because I have great fix-it skills. But I am not fixing it because I just am dying to fix things. I'm fixing it because I don't like it. Yeah. It's not fun for me. So if I can jump in and do some like little low-key therapy or whatever, and we can move us back towards good, then I can have fun because my empathy is getting in the way of my having fun. Yeah. And I want to make sure that we can all be good. Yeah. Which isn't true for all 7s, but it's definitely true for me. And so managing my own empathy in a different way to like widen the scope of what I can do when I'm feeling pain, either mine or someone else's, has been a lot of my work because I want people to feel cared for by me. It's really important to me. And so I as I got into Enneagram, I started to have language for, I have just been shocked at times at how I've hurt people. Yeah. By steamrolling them, by
your jokes.
My jokes, by like
your bad comedy.
It's good comedy. It's just a bad friendship. And I just won't even notice that they're hurt because I'm on to the next thing because I move fast. And so being able to slow down and sit in a moment with someone has taken real work. Yeah. But it's worthwhile work. And it also has led to me being able to slow down and take a moment with myself and to actually key in, which would bring me, I guess, to the second piece of work, which is the 7 coping mechanism is to move out of pain as fast as possible through distraction, through other options, through I'm just going to leave and do something else. And what it led to for a long time is deeply painful things happening that I didn't even understand how painful they were until like 2 or 3 years later.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I never really sat with it and handled it and felt it and grieved it. And then I brought all that woundedness unhealed into the next thing. Yeah. And eventually that'll bring you down. That'll make you cry in parking lots.
It snowballs. I mean, it snowballs for everyone, but I think 7s are particularly like susceptible to it because they've really done a great job of kind of like tuning that out, right? And we talk a lot about how, 3s, 7s, and 8s, they move so fast, right? And they have so much energy, but they move so fast and they have so much energy because they're not feeling. Like feeling
intentionally, because we don't want
intentionally, because feeling requires energy, right? Yeah. Emotions are labor intensive. And this is true around the Enneagram. It doesn't matter what type you are, the emotional center requires a lot of energy, and you can really do so much more if you just cut that out.
It's true. It really is true. I'm so good at doing so many things.
Right? And then you crash.
The result is it's a spiral upward and then a crash down.
Yeah.
And then a spiral upward and then a crash down. And even when I create space for myself, I feel it so fast because when I have space, I feel discomfort.
Yeah, it's threatening. It's threatening because all of your life's dark feelings are coming up on you, right? Like that's the things about feelings is that they don't go away until they're felt. So assertive types, and especially 7s, are just like creating a laundry list of things they're going to have to eventually feel. They're just going to do it later, and then later, and then later.
And you will feel them eventually. But it turns out, if you feel them as they're happening, then you don't have as many like breakdowns along the way.
Turns out.
But I mean, it's funny because my mom lives with us now. And it's funny. She's in a space where she's doing her work and she's around enough for mine. And she will say things like, you've always done this. You cannot not be busy. And then you always spin out until you crash. And then that's when you'll let someone help pick up the pieces. But for me to let someone help me, I have to be like dysfunctional. I don't want help. I don't want to need anything. I don't want my sadness to be inconvenient. I don't want to stop doing things that are meaningful or have impact. And to feel your feelings requires slowing down and stopping. Yeah. And then I feel like not only does this suck because my feelings suck and I hate them, but I'm also not doing anything that it helps people or has impact. And I feel like I need...
Well, you're not having any fun either, like on top of it.
Yeah, I'm not having fun and I'm not having impact. So like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Like...
It feels senseless.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me, which I think comes back to the head center. Like, this math equation is a bad one. It doesn't work. This answer is incorrect. Like, I'm doing labor plus labor.
This answer is incorrect.
It's yielding nothing. It's zero. Yeah. Like hard plus hard should be something. Not hard plus hard is like, I'm just here doing nothing. Which, of course, I'm not doing nothing, but it really...
Yeah, and I think that this is like a big shift that is hard for head-centered folks to make.
Yes.
And really, it's hard for all of us to make because it's the shift from like right brain to left brain, right? Like the shift from very like, or is it left brain to right brain?
I don't know. Keep going so I can understand what you're
like
saying.
Really rigid like math equation type thinking to a much more like free form, open, relaxed, artistic kind of thinking, right? Like this equation doesn't make any sense. It's incorrect in this side of the brain. Right. Yeah. But if we open up, it's the left brain to right brain. Right brain is the free thinking, whatever. Sorry, I figured it out. Don't worry.
It's okay.
But like moving into the right brain thinking is like, this is, this is more open and like you can see an intrinsic value in being able to feel feelings and be relational and like all of this sort of stuff. But it doesn't really work. Like that math equation doesn't work when we're stuck in our type.
Yeah. And I think as an assertive type, there's such a value for agency. And so what I do, I get to choose. I am doing it, even if what I'm doing is stupid. But feelings are something that happened to me. Like, I feel like a victim to my feelings. Yeah. Having to slow down to deal with them is like not a choice. Well, it is a choice I now make because I'm trying to do the work, but it's not a choice to do. It's a choice to not do. Yeah. And that makes me start to lose my feeling of agency. And I feel like I am a person that, like, if something is not good, I will fix it so it can get back to good. Yeah. If I don't like this, I will either leave or I will change. So people who, like, hate their life and they are just, like, they just want to complain about it and bond with you over complaining over and over again about the thing that they don't like. And you're like, what if you got a different job? And they're like, oh, I can't. Sevens have, like, no space for that. I'm just like, yeah, you can. Like, why are you doing this to yourself? It literally doesn't equate for me. Yeah. That, like, feeling of being paralyzed in something that you hate, that you could change. Yeah. Is the most mystifying thing to me in my, like, relational experience. Which is funny because you love fours so much. I do. I really do. But they're irritated by me a lot because I will be like, then you could fix it. Why don't you just do one of these 10 things? Yeah. I can come up with things that you could do instead all day. Yeah. And that is not what they want. Yeah. Which is why fours don't like sevens as much as sevens like fours. Well, let's shift into how we can support the sevens in our lives. Yeah. I think one thing that, like, really gets overlooked, especially in, like, personal growth spaces, is, like, just have some fun with them. Dude. People don't realize how connective you can be with a seven in just doing what they're doing, right? Like, connection doesn't always have to be quite so heart forward. And there's a lot of value in, like, the connection of doing something along with someone else. And sevens are all about that. And, like, sevens really feel valued and loved when their experience brings joy to someone else. Yeah. And so I think, like, going along with it sometimes is good because then you're going to loosen up and you're going to have a good time as well. Yes. Yeah. I love that. And then with that, like, you know, that gentle pointing out, like, hey, maybe we don't have to go do things. Maybe we could sit and, like, chill and talk about what just happened, or, right? Like, you know, for as much as you're going along with also holding them, and this has been a theme almost all season when it comes to, like, helping people with their work. It's like, it's part going with them, and then it's part showing them where maybe, like, and creating space for them to, like, see where maybe they don't need to do what they've always done. Yeah. Right? Because without that going with, they're not going to feel as loved or as cared for. But without that, like, showing, you know, holding up the mirror, so to speak, they're not going to grow. Yeah. And I think with all the types, but especially with the seven, or at least particularly with the seven for this episode, there needs to be a certain amount of trust before you get to hold up the mirror. And you probably have to have done some things first. You have to go along. Exactly. Build connection before you can, with curiosity, hold up the mirror. And that's probably true for every type. You have to go along with their typology enough to know them, to get some, you know, ability to do that. And a lot of times when people are holding up the mirror to me, it's not only like, what if you didn't do that? What if you just slowed down? But it's also, like, you look upset. Why are you upset? And I will universally... They're not, like, intentionally holding up the mirror. It's almost like a, like, you know, they're like, you know, they're pointing out something that you don't see yourself. Yes, because I don't know. Like, so a story that comes to mind for me is my friend Annalisa. We co-worked at the same space, and we had a meeting with each other. Like, we were facilitating. There's, like, a group meeting. Yeah. So Annalisa comes in, and she takes one look at me, and she's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And I'm like, what? Nothing's wrong. And I literally feel like nothing is wrong. Like, I'm not lying to her. I'm like, I'm good. Yeah. So we go through this whole meeting. The meeting goes great. I'm like, ah. And then at the meeting, all the people leave, and it's just Annalisa and I. And Annalisa says, so, like, how's your morning been? And I tell her this thing that happened that was actually pretty freaking harsh. And so Annalisa goes, I knew you were upset. And I was like, oh. Like, I had already moved past that thing. The only reason I came back to the thing was that she had asked me, like, what I did before the meeting, and that brought me back to that moment, and I was like, this was kind of irritating. And And
So good.
It was so funny because she knew I was upset, but I legitimately did not know.
Yeah.
And so being able to say like, are you really okay? The answer almost universally will be like, of course I am, first. And then to be able to nudge in and even to say like, it's okay if you're not. Like, in spaces that I'm in, people comment a lot about my smile. Ben says my title is the Sunshiny Princess of Awesomeness. Okay, I get a lot done with smiles, for better or worse. But if I come into a space and I'm not smiling, or I forget to smile, and I don't put on my fake smile, some people will say to me like, the whole room doesn't feel as good when you're not smiling. And if we are giving them the benefit of the doubt, which I think generally we should, they're trying to say like,
we missed you.
We missed you.
You bring
we
something
appreciate
important.
what you bring. Yeah. I'm noticing that you're not okay. I care about you.
But how it comes out is an obligation. And so I think helping
I hear it as, I am not doing the right thing. I'm not playing my role. I'm now burdening them.
And so creating a lot of space for sevens to not be the life of the party, I think is a really, really, really important piece of helping sevens grow. And with that, there is a piece that's like super important in that like trusting that sevens can.
Yes.
I think that gets missed with a lot of people, that like there's this assumption that like, oh, well, they're just the clown, they're whatever, they don't want to do this work, they don't want to whatever. And that really, for most sevens, isn't true. Yeah. And, you know, I think about like our relationship and like we can both with each other go into hard things.
Right.
And like, I can show you hard, like I can hold up the mirror and be like, hey, what the fuck? And you can hold up the mirror to me and be like, hey, what the fuck? And like,
we don't even have to be that gentle with each other. No, and then both of us will be like, well, fuck you. Because we have a lot of trust.
Thank you. Yeah. But I think that like that stems from like we've spent a lot of time together. We've done life together for a long time. But there is a piece that's like so fundamental of like trusting that each person could handle it.
Yeah. Yes.
Right? That like we can go to the next level, we can go to the next step, we can show those things because I trust that you have the capacity for this. And there have been plenty of times where it's like, you know, maybe we miss or whatever, and like we've had to like whatever, like deal with that. But like the fundamental trust of like, you are capable of this particular growth. I don't feel like that gets extended to sevens often enough.
Right.
And if, you know, I've been doing this work for like 6-7 years now with clients, and I can straight up say no one works harder than sevens. Like the sevens that I've worked with are like the things that they've been able to do, the ways that they've been able to grow and change. Like there is a real hunger for that kind of growth. And it's not to say that my other clients aren't growing. Like I'm not saying that at all, but there is something really like fierce about how sevens take on this work.
As soon as you show a seven, you are causing your own bullshit.
Yeah.
The things that you are doing are making your life less fun. There's like an intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
I can do something to make my life more fun and more easy.
Like in a real way?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's do that. So I think that's part of it, is that the seven's like, okay,
and
just
that's
tell me
the
what
thing.
to do.
It's like I think the road for sevens is so much harder, but the motivation is almost immediate. Yeah. Where for other types, the road isn't quite as difficult, but cultivating the motivation is really hard.
Yeah.
And so I think for sevens, it's like the road is hard, but the motivation is there almost instantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to add on to something that you were saying earlier, you were saying we want to acknowledge that the seven is capable of going deep. But I also, for me to really go deep, I really have to trust that will be welcomed, and that person will not be disappointed or mad at me. And some of that is outside of the Enneagram, is family of origin stuff. But of course, the Enneagram and family of origin all mix in anyway. Right. But if I think, or if I start to go deep and I feel like the person doesn't have patience for that, or they're like, oh God, she's crying.
Like buoy up, right,
I will come right back up.
Yeah.
And because the person has shown they're not trustworthy in that way. And so I need to know you have capacity
Yeah.
for me to be sad or angry, because my coping mechanism is to never be sad or angry.
Yeah.
And to just solve my sadness and anger by myself, so that what I'm bringing into the room is fun and energy, and everybody's glad I'm in the room.
Yeah.
And I need that to feel safe. And some of my work is to not need that.
Yeah.
But like my sevenness wants that and craves that. So if I'm not gonna be safe with you, you won't get to see that part of me. And then your assumption about me will be, she doesn't go deep.
Yeah.
So
but it's not necessarily true.
It'll be because you
didn't create space for that.
You weren't trustworthy when I dipped my toe. You know, and sevens are like, they will dip
just the tiniest bit of a toe.
And just a little forewarning is, if I do ever end up like sobbing in front of you, which I could probably count on my fingers, the people.
Yeah.
I will immediately tell you, I'm so sorry. I will feel so bad about it. I will apologize profusely. And you will be trustworthy and be like, why are you apologizing? This sucks.
Yeah.
And I will be like mortified.
Yeah.
Because what I feel like is required of me is showing up in a cheery way. So it's really hard for me to stop apologizing when I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard work.
Yeah.
Well, that was a great dive on the sevens. And I thank you for like showing up and being so like vulnerable and like open and honest.
I do feel already like, oh, this is going on the internet.
This is going to be a hard one. So thank you all for watching. Drop some comments down below. Give Kim some love, because she showed up and really laid stuff out for y'all to learn more about the sevens in your life. And if you are a seven, let Kim know how you relate. Be sure,
or if you don't, because I'm
relate.
definitely looking through my particular lens.
Yeah.
So if something doesn't resonate to you, then throw that in there too.
Yeah.
You can take it.
We definitely can take it. Don't forget to click like and subscribe. If you're listening to the audio version, please give a rating in your podcast. Let people know that you like it. Share it. All that good stuff. We have a workshop coming up.
Yes, we do. January 20th. Their link is below. Gorgeous space. We're going to be taking these concepts about the Enneagram in relationship, but you'll get to roll your sleeves up and really dig into your own relational stories.
Yeah.
And
so we have individual tickets, and you save money if you come as a pair. That you don't have to bring your spouse or whatever. It could be a friend, a coworker, a boss. It could be a spouse. It could be a father or a mother or a brother or sister or a non-binary sibling. Bring somebody.
We are cautioning that there are most likely going to be adult conversations in these spaces, so it's not really the time to bring your 8-year-old. But if you have adult kids, this is a great opportunity. Just know that they're gonna know your
stuff, and you're gonna know theirs.
And you're gonna know theirs, so you got to come with an open heart.
Yeah.
A thick skin.
Yeah. Open heart and a thick skin. I like it. Thank you again so much for watching. It's a pleasure as always. And we will see y'all in the next one.
Cheers.